you gotta love it. Like if you don't love it and you're not like having fun doing it, you really gotta question it. Like, is this something you actually love? Then if so, then just like do it for that. Like just do it because it's fun. Like when I create like a moment in my songs and created like a little world that is like special, that to me, that's the most satisfying thing. Like playing out is great and like, tons of streams, awesome. But like when that moment when you actually make something and you like it, that to me is like the most satisfying thing.
I think maybe to start, because like we've known each other for a long time, but like we don't like know each other. But like, tell me about like how you got in. Tell me about how you got into music and like what was the first spark, like when you were young.
Yeah, music in general. If you want to go back to when I was like a kid, I think my first experience of like loving music was probably like just in the radio with my parents. I think my first song I like sang was a John Bon Jovi song. Apparently I used to love singing that when I was like 5, and I kind of vaguely remember it. I definitely like had a love for music as like a super young age, and then I remember loving Michael Jackson too when I was a kid. Like absolutely like being obsessed with him. That also kind of like influenced me and like maybe just love music. And then when I was like 11 or 12 or something, my brother started playing guitar. He's my older brother, so I always wanted to do everything he wanted to do. And so I was like, I want to take guitar lessons too. Fell in love with just learning guitar and like just the whole world behind it. We had a really good teacher too. I actually still stay in contact with him. His name's Rod, and he actually might cut a solo for this remix I'm working on because he's like insane at guitar. He's like, like super like technical. So yeah, when I was like 13, I like got really into guitar. It was like big part of my identity, learning songs, playing in like the local scene. Like it was kind of when like coffee shops were big, where you'd go and like jam in a coffee shop. I would go jam with like other people. Kind of got more, I'll make this a really quick version. In the teenage years, I got more into like hardcore and like then eventually like emo. I was super into that stuff. Like Jimmy Eat World was like my favorite band in the world, like early Jimmy Eat World. I was like a hipster when they got big. I was like, this sucks, but whatever. And then, then I started playing in like rock bands. There's a pretty healthy local scene where I grew up in Reading, Pennsylvania. Like actually like a lot of good musicians and stuff. And there was this band that I used to follow called 13 Over 8. They were like a local hardcore band. They were pretty big for the scene. Like they were doing some like kind of cooler stuff. I mean, your world then smaller. You don't really like know what big is, but like it was big for us. I always like loved them. And then like college years, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was like maybe going to go for communications, but I knew I loved music. And so basically the band broke up, and I was pretty good friends with the one guy, the drummer, Jared. And he was basically like, hey, do you want to join this band? We're starting a new band with the singer of that old band 13 Over 8 and Jared. And he asked me because I used to like jam with them and stuff. And like he knew I was like really into music. He knew I was good at guitar. I was like kind of making beats and stuff at the time. He showed me some of the music, and it was like half electronic, half rock. And at the time I was like, I loved like the Faint and like that kind of like blog house world. It was like very big then, and like Daft Punk. And so that was like when I first started getting electronic music, like real electronic music. So yeah, and that band ended up being Inner Party System, which was like, you got everyone could go Google it. That was like a big part of my life from like my 20 to like 25. It was pretty much like a huge part of my life. And we got signed to Island Def Jam. We kind of like blew up on MySpace. I was in that era. Like we had a song blow up, and I remember like labels calling us and like kind of, because you would just put your phone number on the MySpace page, and like literal A&R guys would like call us and be like, hey, what's the deal with this record? do you guys want to, like kind of like doing the whole schmoozy thing. And we were all like 20 something. So we were like, this is crazy. Eventually we linked up with one of the guys that was in our local scene. He actually ended up going to New York and like being like working at Island Def Jam and like whatever, like kind of working there, like doing video and like following. I don't know. He was like a multi-faceted job he had there. And he was like, I'll just manage you guys and let's do this real and let's do this right. And he ended up getting us signed to Island Def Jam, like a full major label deal. We were probably like the first deal or the last deal that wasn't like a shitty 360 deal. It was actually like a good deal. We got like tour support and like all this stuff. So like 21 years old, I was out touring and like playing in this band, like playing, we did like Warped Tour and like we put out records that actually did pretty well in the UK and stuff. And it was my first experience of like actually like taking it seriously and like sitting down and like writing music every day and like realizing that that's what it takes to like make really, really good songs. You have to show up every day and like just write. Even if you're banging your head against the wall, you have to keep going. Yeah, that was like my first experience into like real professional music. We had a good run. We put out one EP, an album, and then another EP. So there's a good body of work out there. You guys can go check it out. We were like half electronic, so we would play like after parties and stuff. That's kind of when I started realizing like, dude, I'll never forget this. We played like a party in New York called Boys and Girls. One of the first years it was going, or the first couple of years, it was like super brand new. And we showed up with like our whole band gear, like guitars and amps and synths and drums. And like we played our set and everyone's just kind of like, hanging out. Like I think it was some people were like, what the heck? And then Drop the Lime was on the show after us. And he went up and DJ'd right after us. And the place blew up. Everyone, he just started playing Bloghouse and everyone was dancing like crazy. And I was like, I remember having the realization right there. I was like, what are we doing? Like we spent so much time sound checking, bringing our gear, all this stuff. Like, and there's five of us. We had 5 at one point. And it's like, we're not making any money. This is so much work. And like, this guy just rolled up and crushed it. He's like, I want to do that. And so then we started like, learning how to DJ, playing after parties and stuff. The band was going for a while, but to be honest, we were going on during the EDM boom. Like Steve Aoki was blowing up, Skrillex blew up. We knew Skrillex before he was Skrillex. We did a tour with him, and that's actually how I signed my first like Alsla EP, because I stayed in contact with Sonny. But yeah, I mean, we saw all of EDM blow up, and like we're still doing this band thing, and like we had a good trajectory, but I think it was just the singer just couldn't do it anymore. I think he just didn't want to tour. He wanted to just write songs. I kind of wanted to just DJ. Like I was like, why don't we just DJ up there? Like this is, but so it kind of got toxic. It kind of got like, it felt like we were going nowhere. It was hard to make money. And so we just ended it like, just like that. We were actually about to go on tour with 30 Seconds to Mars and like be in that world.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, we basically just ended it. And I started kind of I took like a year or so off and just tried to get really good at producing. And yeah, and then after I signed that EP to Alsla, and then that's probably when I started kind of doing like some small shows like in LA and stuff. And then, yeah, just been kind of grinding ever since then.
Wow, man. It's so crazy because we have such similar trajectories and like we're in sort of like neighboring scenes. So I didn't grow up. I consider PA, like I went to high school in Mechanicsburg.
No way.
A suburb of Harrisburg. I was born in California, but I went to high school there. So I actually think of like Mechanicsburg as home. But yeah, it's like the same exact trajectory, like down to like, I wasn't singing Bon Jovi, it was Aerosmith, but it was like Aerosmith and then Michael Jackson. And then like, I remember when I first got to California, it was like Warped Tour and like, A Newfound Glory and Blink. And, it's like I sort of was like discovering all of that while then on the heels of that, it's like The Faint and like indie dance, like buying those kinds of records. I think that the MySpace was how we were promoting our parties, and playing a lot of like the indie dance parties, like the Boys and Girls, sort of like smaller versions of that, but like all over like Southern California.
Yeah, there were a few across the states that were like kind of like cooler parties. There was one in Philly called Making Time.
Yeah.
That I saw. Actually, that's where I saw Justice for the first time.
Yep.
And it was like it was the loudest thing I ever heard. I remember being like, "What the fuck is this shit?" and yeah, I often think about like what was going on in different pockets of the world that are in the States then, because like dance music was like that was like the hipster stuff back then with like LCD sound system, and like I always like wanted to get to LA. But LA was always like this kind of like thing that felt so like far away for me.
Yeah.
So I often think about like what was going on in LA, because like I know I wasn't around for this, but like I know like the Dim Mak parties were like a big thing, and yeah, like Steve Aoki was a big part of all that, and like it would have been cool to like been more in the scene, because I was still doing kind of like more rocky stuff like Warped Tour when I really loved that stuff. So yeah, I think about it like what it would have been like if maybe we broke up earlier and I just started doing dance music earlier.
I think it's cool. Like, I think it's so rad that like, a lot of times when people, they grow up consuming, one genre of music, and then they end up making that genre of music, it can be boring. Like, it's just like, because it's sort of like, oh, okay, it's like a new iteration of this, versus like people who come from other genres and other backgrounds, and they come into the electronic music space, or really just once they sort of leave one space and then go into a new one, that's when really interesting things happen. So that influence is so cool that you have that, as part of your story and like the backing of, the stuff that you're doing now.
Totally. Yeah. I think it probably still really influences what I do today with all like the remixes online and stuff. Like, yeah, I do have a pretty like deep random knowledge of music. Like I was super into Bjork. I was like, I'm into George Benson. I'm in, like really random stuff. I just like good stuff. Someone told me once upon a time that there's really only two types of music, good and bad. And anything could be good or bad, any style. It's more just about like if it's honest. And so, yeah, I mean, I think I pull from that a lot, either, just to sample weird stuff, or even like deep knowledge of like a lot of the kids growing up now and getting into dance music now, they don't know about like the Prodigy and like, Chemical Brothers, like, and that stuff is like so foundational to me. And I think it still helps like really like understand like what's going to do well today. Honestly, I think that's why like guys like Chris Lake kill it. I think they like have those influences. So
yeah, it sounds like it's like your taste. Like, it's like, through the years, it's like you're cultivating your taste. And even by saying like, it's like, oh, I like Bjork, but I also like George Benson. And it's almost like something that's intentional. Like you just like what you like, but it's like, I think that there is creative types that will seek, it's like Anthony Bourdain, like trying new food. It's not necessarily that it's, oh, I'm bored of this, as much as I'm just curious about like other things that are out there. And then the more stuff you listen to, and, the more things that are maybe outside of like a popular genre, outside of your scene, it influences your taste, and it influences like your choices. And that's really ultimately, Rick Rubin has this thing where he's like, people always ask me about my confidence in my taste. And he's like, I just look at everything the same way most people look at food. Like it either tastes good or it tastes bad to me. Like, just to me. And so it's like, your taste is the most important thing, but how you cultivate that's really like, that's what I think is super interesting, is that like, your life is just your life for you, but it's like, there's a lot of really interesting spices and experiences that you're having, through those eras. So now when you make something, it's just like, it's a unique perspective.
Totally. And I think what you said about your life, it's something I've been thinking about more, is that like you do need to like experience life too. Like you need to just like go to the beach and like just have fun with people not in like the intention is like I'm gonna grab a song from this, but like that all that like stuff kind of like feeds into like how you're inspired and like how you feel artistic, because making music and being artistic is like you kind of have to like tap into something that is like magical. It's like another world that you're kind of tapping into. So like those like emotions and those like feelings you have when you're like with a girl you really love and you're just like driving down the beach and everything's just perfect, you know, that's like, oh, that's like a little lyric for a song or whatever. And I think especially for songwriters, which at the end of the day, that's what I started doing. And I've kind of like really implemented that more into my music now. Living life and like having a creative life. I think it is really important to do that, which I think from the conversations I have with my friends and stuff, that like when you start getting frustrated and like you bang your head against a wall, like something like that could be awry, like something in your life. You need to like start feeding your soul more. Not to like sound corny, but a lot of that, like those corny, like one sentence tropes are very true, honestly. I never bought into like the tortured artist thing, to be honest, because when I'm like, you know, like not feeling great mentally or something, I don't write. That doesn't help me. And I never, like for me personally, that never was the case. I need to feel good and like be happy and like feed my soul to write good music.
Ever wonder how to truly cut through the noise and get your music to a broader audience? The Cult Creatives is a niche agency servicing the communities and brands surrounding the spaces of music and fashion. Our unique backgrounds of being highly involved with some of the largest music and fashion brands in the world gives us a unique perspective on how to connect creatives with their audiences. We offer a variety of services including creative direction, design, photography, videography, and strategy. Head to thecultcreatives.com to learn more. The Cult Creatives, not to be replicated, but if you try, we wouldn't blame you.
You know, when you're not feeling as inspired, the productive part, or the part of your soul that's, you know, yearning to be productive, wants to write, but then you don't necessarily feel like it. Like, what kind of things are you doing to go and like drum up that inspiration?
I mean, yeah, just kind of doing like basic human stuff, like go hike, get out of your head for a second. I dabble in psychedelics. That really helps me. Maybe not for everybody, but it like just a little microdose of mushrooms really helps me like step out of my head a little bit. Listening to other music, like other kinds of cool stuff that's not EDM or even cool EDM. I feel like that inspires me. And just having the mindset of like, I don't know, like what's that one saying where like you have two wolves inside of you, where like one you're feeding the bad wolf, one you're feeding the good wolf, and like you really got to like it's like a muscle you have to work on. You have to like work on feeding the good wolf to, at least for me, this is what works for me. And like not getting jaded. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many artists have started below me and now they're above me or whatever, you know, like this guy got this thing that I didn't get, but like, and I used to get mad, jealous, and butthurt about it. But I think letting that go and like having the right mentality towards that stuff has like really, really helped me. Not even just mentally, but I think it helps your professional career and everything you do, because you're not going to have like some resentment towards anything. And you have to be genuinely happy when people do well, because especially in dance music, like this is something that a lot of people don't realize, but like, dude, if somebody blows up, like when Skrillex blew up, he made so many new dance fans. A lot of us wouldn't even have a career if it wasn't for someone like blowing dance music up like that. So like every artist that gets huge, they're like onboarding people into dance music. So like, don't get mad about it. Just focus on you, what your plan is. And
it's so funny because, you know, doing what we do with Cult, something I ask artists a lot is like, what drives you? You know, like what is the primary driver when you really distill everything down, and you get different answers. And I remember like, you know, I had an artist that said, well, I want to be number one in the DJ Mag Top 100. And that's not there's no like right or wrong answer, right? That it's like some people, it's like, if you're an athlete, like I want to be the best in the world. Well, what is the best? But the way that I look at it is that like music and performance is art, and it is not race cars on a track. And it can feel that way because of set times and offer amounts, and you got bumped for this thing, and like what's the billing like, all of that. It's almost like the industry can kind of push you into that model, but it's not. It's art. So like the trajectory that you're on and the path that you're on is yours. There's no, like, there are other people that also make music, but your path is entirely yours. And that's what, like, most of the time, too, like a lot of the artists that are like, quote unquote, on top, like it can be lonely at the top also. And it's like, you don't actually know that person and their life and like, what they're going through. So although you may look at like the pyro and the fans and all of that and see success, that success is actually just like what you're talking about, where it's like the discipline of just making things and then sharing those things. If you're in that, then you're successful. Like all the rest of it is just kind of like, it's the music business. So that's like the business side of like, how many shows can we play and what are the streaming numbers and all that stuff. And it matters because it helps you create more things. If you are making money, like with the project, you can make more cool things and more cool experiences. That it really is like your own path. And that's rad. I think but it absolutely comes with like maturity that it's like, that's not, something you're thinking in the early days at all.
Yeah. And a lot of that feeling that people get is because they don't feel like they're on their own path. And because if you do, and you feel confident in what you're doing and you're happy with even just the art you're doing, you really don't let that stuff bother you then, because you're like, well, I'm doing my thing. You're like, it doesn't matter. I have a plan. I have a vision. I'm not going to, I'm happy for other people doing well, whatever. And so like, yeah, that feeling usually, at least in my experience, has come from when like I'm kind of like flailing and I don't really know what I'm doing and I don't have like a set plan.
And does it feel like then other people have it figured out?
Right. Yeah. And
yeah,
you get jealous and you start feeding that bad wolf, and then you get jaded. And then if you can't snap yourself out of that, it's such a disaster for writing and being creative. It really is, because then you start trying to chase things like, do I chase this trend? Do I, am I doing this wrong? You start questioning yourself. And like, that really is the worst recipe for being creative. You have to feel confident. You have to feel like this is dope. And like, you have to have love for yourself. And it's like, I really do think you need to like come from like kind of like a spiritual place to make really good. I mean, there's so much good music, and like maybe not it's all like super spiritual, but like the really special stuff comes from like this like other ether of the world. Like it's not real, it's magic.
Yeah, you're just kind of like letting it come through you. What do you think when you're talking about like the bad wolf, that when like, because I would imagine you've been quote unquote surfing for a long time, and so it's like when these waves come in and you can see them coming just because you've been doing it for a bit. That how do you, like, what kind of conversations are you having with yourself not to just like jump on that wave and kind of just stay, in your own zone?
Being honest with yourself and like saying, what do I genuinely love? I've always loved house music. I started with like house and break beats. I think part of my career when I started going like hard trap is like kind of me. Like if you look back at my catalog, like it's all over the place. And I guess honestly with like the hard trap and like EDM stuff, it like maybe kind of, some of it was really good and like I still like making that, but like some of the songs I look back and I'm like, maybe I was like kind of chasing there, like it doesn't feel very genuine to me. And so like going back to me, like in the last 3-4 years, like I kind of saw the house wave come and I was like, I love house music. I'm just gonna like, this is what I could keep doing forever. Like I don't care if I'm, not even playing shows. This is what I would want to do. Like just keep putting out tracks that hopefully get support from cool DJs. And like, that's what I like doing. Like my favorite thing to do in the world is be in the studio making dope dance tracks. That's like, I love doing that. I really do. I'm happy with however long it takes to get there if I'm just doing that. I don't care. And so I made a pretty conscious decision like 3 years ago, maybe, like when all the remixes online were kind of doing well. And like, I noticed like the houseier ones doing better. I was like, I'm just going to lean into this. Like, this is kind of back to my roots anyway. It's been great. And I really feel like I kind of like found myself as an artist because of these things.
It seems like you're looking within, like you're looking inside, you're aware of what's going on. It's like, you're aware that's like, oh, there's a wave over here of like hard techno. But instead of just like, my old manager used to say like chasing the dragon, that's like, okay, this is the new one. And you can see it coming. Maybe we should like position ourselves so whenever that wave comes, we're just like set up and we can, cruise on it, versus like, what do I want to say and what do I like right now? Like if I were to take like a snapshot of just like where I'm at right now and my tastes and the things that are inspiring me, what would that look like? And you're aware, but you're more like looking within, which is super rad, because then it's like the things that come out, generally it's like, it's so funny that usually when you're doing that, those are the things that are connecting with people, because it's like authentic to you. And then the more authentic you can be, the more that it touches someone.
100%. Yeah. Being authentic, like it's like subconscious to people. It just connects with people more when it does come off that way.
Tell me about this. So although you have a lot more to say, and there's many, many more chapters in the book, you have already had like a long career in music. You've already like, started, it's like, starting with, even just the coffee shop. That is the beginning of like presenting music to people all the way to now. Talk to me about like longevity and sustainability. Cause I think that like, sometimes like what we do, it can look really appetizing to, like young creatives, like I'm going to get in there and I'm going to go be, the next Deadmau5 or John Summit, or, it's like, I'm going to go do that, versus like having like a long career, that has like ebbs and flows and, ups and downs. But talk to me about just like, what all those different moments have been and how you sort of sustain for longevity.
Yeah. I mean, so I think in some ways I'm lucky that like I've never really had that like huge like blow up moment. I feel like I know that some people, that's what they want, like, and it would be nice, I'm sure. And I'm sure it is nice, but I think in some ways that could be really challenging to like come back from some artists, because you're always trying to get back to that point instead of like just like being like a true artist. I guess in some ways I'm lucky is that like none of my like projects have really been like this huge like holy shit moment. It's been this kind of like slow trajectory up. You gotta love it. Like if you don't love it and you're not like having fun doing it, you really got to question it. Like, is this something you actually love? Then if so, then just like do it for that. Like just do it because it's fun. Like when I create like a moment in my songs and created like a little world that is like special, that to me, that's the most satisfying thing. Like playing out is great and like, tons of streams, awesome. But like when that moment when you actually make something and you like it, that to me is like the most satisfying thing. Just going back to that, like I'm always just chasing that. I'm not chasing success. I'm not chasing numbers. I'm just chasing that feeling of like making something new and dope. I love that.
But you can do that forever.
Exactly. Like, yeah. And I think like success and money and all this stuff, it's a byproduct of doing that, like making something really dope that you love. Because then if it's really special and you honed your craft in and you make it good, then it's going to get to the ears that need to hear it. The rest of it is like just, at this point, just DMing people, emailing people, like spend a whole day and just send it everywhere if you really believe in it. And then I think also like having a really good network is super important. Everyone says it is just like, especially musicianship. I think like having a group of people you could bounce ideas off of, be in the studio together, like have fun. This making music should be fun. Like, I remember talking with Kill the Noise, like when you're smiling in the studio and you're laughing, you're doing something right. You're onto something there. And that like has always been kind of my mantra. And like, I think that's kind of why I could just keep doing it, is because I have a love for it. I'm a synth nerd. Like I'll sit here and play with my synths forever, and not use it in a track ever. I love it for that reason.
Lost in it, like you get lost in like the act of play, where it's like you're just having fun.
Yeah, totally. It should be play and like just like a love for musicianship, like, jamming out on guitar, whatever. And it's like that, like I'm never like gonna not have music in my life. So to me, it's like, I don't know, it's not even like a question. I'm just like drawn to this life. So it doesn't matter if I go back down again. If my manager and agent could all leave me, like I'm still going to do this, and then I'll find a new path, like that at this point is like, I'm lucky at this point because like, I've done, I've kind of like been grandfathered in a little bit. I don't have to, I mean, when I was working Uber, like when the band broke up, I was working Uber and making beats, but like now I probably don't ever have to do that again. So like it does help once you get over that little hump, and then you could kind of start feeding the cycle. But I mean, looking back, like having that mentality is really important to not get like frustrated and jaded and want to quit. I've been there though. It happens.
Yeah. Oh, talk to me about that. So like when you hit those moments, like what do you do in that moment where you feel like, I think I'm going to leave this?
I'm just trying to think back. Probably like the lowest point was like my agent dropped me, so I wasn't getting shows anymore. Didn't have much cooking, and I felt the pressure of like, not like what if this doesn't work, and like used to kind of tell myself like, once I hit 30, I can't be doing this anymore, which is a stupid thought. Like age doesn't matter at all. But I think, I mean, looking back, I think I just kind of, I'm lucky. I think I like was raised pretty well. I think I had a lot of these kind of like things built into me. And I still just, that love for music was always there. And I think I just got in the studio and like tried to get better, like tried to make better songs. Like you can't blame anybody else. Like any situation in your life, there could be some bad things, but like for the most part, like you have to, even for the bad things, you have to take responsibility. Like this is how I'm going to react to it. And like, I'm going to like have a level head and like be practical. And like, what do I have to do is to figure this out to make it work. For the music industry, 99% of your problems could be fixed by making better music. That's kind of what it comes down to if you want to be an artist. Yeah.
Ever wonder how top artists in the music industry have such compelling and engaging brands? The difference between successful music brands and everyone else are well thought out and well executed brand stories. But how can you build a strong brand story of your own? The Cult Creatives and Bass Clef present Integrity Amplified, an online course explaining how to properly build a brand and stand out without sacrificing your artistic integrity. Integrity Amplified gives insight into how some of the largest brands in the world were constructed and how you can apply the same techniques to your own brand. This course is designed for music producers who want to elevate their brand to the next level. Whether you're looking to expand your audience, get signed, or simply carve out your niche, Integrity Amplified offers you the tools and strategies you need to create your brand and achieve your goals at a rapid pace. Go to bassclef.com/integrity-amplified for more information. Integrity Amplified. Take the elevator, not the stairs.
It's a relationship. What is a relationship? It's like you're spending time with a person or a thing, and you have a relationship with that thing. And like no relationship is perfect all the time. Even if you like, love something or someone dearly, it's not perfect all the time and things happen. But I think it is really interesting, because there's the art side and there's the play side of music, but then there is the industry. And it's like, okay, I'm trying to survive and eat and pay bills off of my creativity. It does change the approach to where like, if you're just like making it for fun, which is pretty much all like what you're talking about, is like being in a state where it's like it doesn't have a result attached to it, but it changes your relationship. Like I remember like really vividly that it was like one day I was a waiter and then I was like a working DJ, and like DJing was the thing I was doing just because I loved it. Like I loved every bit of just like getting the, this is like an old head thing, but I started with vinyl. And so like getting, the vinyl and like just going and finding those records and buying them on import and then going and like playing the sets, like I didn't, but like in my mind, I'm like, I would pay people to do this. Like I love this experience so much. But then it was like, oh, now this is my job. And then it changes. The relationship changes. And then like, how do you cope with now this thing being your job? But what's cool, like what you said before about the network, and I did want to ask you this about sort of just like, relationship with like other artists. I felt like I had such a cool community of people around me and like other DJs and other artists. And, we'd have conversations like this. And I did feel like, at least in the world of DJing and like dance music, that it felt pretty supportive. Like there was some competition, but it wasn't like hip hop. There, really was like support. But I think that like that was something that, just helping me sort of navigate, the world. But I am curious, is like you were saying that, the goal is when you make something and you like it, that is what you're after. And the hope is that other people share, like they like the thing that you like. But with your network, do you find yourself like when you get something and like you've got something special, do you find yourself like sending it out to like a bunch of the homies and like, getting their feedback? Or like, will you just kind of like, I know, and I might send it to like a few people, but I think I know.
So I have like a tight group that I will send even just like rough ideas to and be like, what if we did this? What if we did this? And we all kind of help each other in that way, which is like really, really, valuable to me, because there's no transactional thing there. It's just we're doing it because we're friends and we love music and we want to make dope music. That's it. And it's beautiful. When it gets down to like bigger DJs and stuff, or like bigger label and whatever industry, I'm definitely really careful, and I like wait till it's like done-ish to send stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's so valuable to have that network. We're pretty lucky in dance music. I feel like for the most part, we're pretty all supportive of each other. Actually, I even heard that this is more of an American trait. I've heard that like other countries aren't really like this. That a lot, I don't want to like talk shit on the UK, but like apparently there is kind of a culture of like trying to hold each other back there. I don't know if that's true. I'm not from there. I've just heard that. But I don't know. It's cool to be around people that, want you to win, happy for your success. It's so important. It's like insanely important. You want it for other people too. Like you're on the wrong path if you start feeling like this guy's bullshit, he doesn't deserve this or whatever. Like even if it's not your cup of tea, if something gets huge, it's really valuable to yourself to know why it got big. Why does this have mass appeal? And like, what is it about it that's hitting? Because there is a business to this. Like you want to always kind of like, you want to like keep that little like sacred heart of like, all the things I love and that I keep dear and like make it awesome for me. But I mean, there is like marketability to all this, and like you have to have your knowledge of what's going on in the world too. So like, you never want to be that old guy that's like, this doesn't deserve to get big. Like that's, I don't know, that's weakness.
And it's not up to you. Like it's up to the audience. Like the audience, they like what they like. And there's nobody setting the rules, for why somebody likes something or why they shouldn't like something. I used to find myself like, with my then girlfriend, but now wife, I would make stuff and she wasn't like a trained musician. She was just a fan of music. So I'd play her things and she was like gauge public, that it was like, oh, she's not like thinking of like, oh, you did this really funny thing with the chords here or whatever. She's just like, she likes it or she doesn't like it. And it's binary. but I bummed if she's like, she didn't like it. And then I would explain, well, the reference and, sort of like where we are, like the context around like this. And it's like, and as soon as I start explaining, I'm like, no, I'm like, she likes it or she doesn't like it. Like, you can't like, explain why, something's a cool move, or like it just doesn't work like that. I think when you can find someone that's just a listener, and, maybe everybody has bias, when they're listening to something, but if they can sort of just, just tell me what you feel like on a first listen, like that, to me, that was the best. And also like kids, like, even though like maybe not all, dance music is appropriate for children, but it's like just seeing like, oh yeah, like, do kids think this is fun? And, are they jamming to it?
Yeah, that's actually really funny because little kids love dance music. Like they love like all the crazy sounds.
They don't have references either, right? They don't have like, well, this is cool because of this. It's like, they're just like, oh, fun. Like, this is a clever thing.
That's how, honestly, like, it's really good to try and look at music that way, I think. And because all the other stuff, like the style, branding, coolness factor, whatever, is like, it's important to have that stuff and like do it right. But I mean, when you strip all that back, what's really there is like, how does that actual audio make you feel? And it's like so raw, like you can't, it's undeniable when you like a song.
Yes.
And that's like, you have to like train yourself not like a song because it's Taylor Swift or whatever. Like, just because you don't like that she's whatever she does, or like she's uncool or whatever. Like, if the song is good, you got to recognize it. And that is going to keep you honest with like what you make too, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me about beats I can't release. So how did it start? Like, what were you thinking? And, obviously it's become what it's become, but tell me about the origin.
So, I mean, the origin probably even goes back to like pre-pandemic, before I was even doing them, because I was always kind of known as like an edit guy. One of my biggest tracks was this one called Da 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 Da. That was like a trap flip of Busta Rhymes, and that one like got like crazy support. Like literally every DJ was playing that. There was like a really big moment of Skrillex playing it at some festival, and he was on the mic going da, 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 like it was awesome. And like that was really big for me. I got like a lot of touring. Actually, that was like one of the things that like really revived my career. I had that lull, and then that came out, which really helped. And then I had the Vanga Boys Fuck That Shit flip that did really well, that like every DJ played. So like those two kind of put me on the map as like a edit guy, even though I didn't always drop original music too, and like tons of it. If you look back, I have so much original music as well. But I kind of got known for like doing those at my shows. And I started dropping them as like Wuki leaks, did like, a whole kind of like free series, SoundCloud on it, which was really helpful. Yeah. And then the pandemic hit, and TikTok was like really kind of became like a big thing. And actually my fiance, she was like, she was kind of addicted to her phone, like we all were. And she's like, you should just like do some videos. Like, it's so big for musicians. And I was like really early on to doing it. A lot of people weren't doing it yet. Like short form video content. I mean, if you look back on my TikTok and Instagram, a lot of the ones kind of fell flat. Like, I'm just kind of like sitting in front of my computer, and I'm not like doing like a lot of like angled like video cuts. Like, it was just really low effort. And I got some steam, and then I did one. I think it was a Crunk in Time one. That it's the Enya flip with Little John, and that one went like mega viral. Like it like was crazy. I got like 7 million views, and like the dopamine was just like crazy. I mean, I never had anything like that. Like, it was like my first like viral thing on the internet, and I remember getting like tons of followers from it. I had like a Patreon type thing set up, so, and like I was getting like a bunch of subscriptions, and like it was like really helping me in the pandemic. And it was like, I was like, all right, I'm going to just like start doing a ton of these. I've no shows. I have nothing going on. I'm like, I'm just gonna go crazy on this. And like, I work pretty fast, especially with like remixes. So I was doing like 3-4 a week, and like, just, dude, there was like a golden moment in TikTok where I was just like, everything was getting 1 million views, like everything, like the algorithm was like right on my side. Like, I was just like, it was crazy. I was just like leaning in so hard and like crushing it. Instagram wasn't totally like reels weren't totally popping off yet. So it was like really TikTok oriented at first. I had one really blow up that ended up getting signed called As the World Caves In, that got really big on TikTok. It, like, one of those songs that like just gets used all the time. Like, it had like 1 million use cases. Like, people use the song or whatever. I think it like 13 million videos at peak or something like that. And what's crazy is like each one of those million videos are like at least like 5% of them have 1 million views on them as well. So like the amount of times this song gets played is nuts. Really, like, I mean, the pandemic lasted like 2 years, so I kept doing it. I just kept going. It was really helping my career. I was getting more shows. The subscriptions kept going up. So it's like I didn't stop, and I was like, I'm just gonna keep doing this. And it kind of like really helped me figure out myself as an artist, to be honest. And like it was like very satisfying because I've always been like a remixer. I've always loved all kind of genres of music. I've always loved flipping like old stuff. Like, even in my old band, we flipped like a David Bowie record. That was like one of my favorite things. It kind of became like a part of my identity, like naturally. I haven't really stopped. If they do really well on socials at this point, like, we could look at clearing it and putting it out for real. So that's exactly what happened with Edge of 17 and Sunshine. It's kind of become like a really good positive feedback for Loop. Like, I have the subscription still going. It keeps me creative writing. It keeps it, even if I don't sign it or like put it out for real, it's a cool edit for my sets. And so it just kind of like, it's become like a cool little like positive feedback loop for me, and I probably won't really ever stop.
Skull Candy products are made for an on-the-go lifestyle. Headphones, earbuds, and speakers all deliver premium quality sound and a unique sonic experience tuned to you. With active noise-canceling technology, Skull Candy products are sweat, water, and dust resistant. Test for yourself with free shipping on orders over $99. Be prepared for skull-thumping, bone-rattling sound. For the ultimate immersive audio experience, choose Skull Candy. Break free from ordinary audio. Skull Candy, for your head.
There are certain artists when the pandemic happened that I think it was like, especially when you're working a lot and then you've got your tour dates, it almost like, and listen, the pandemic was absolutely horrible and like, it's, not a positive thing. But like, I think for a lot of people in music, it was an opportunity to like slow down, and it was an opportunity to like be home and chill. And there's a treadmill that is like, the music industry, and then you get into certain times of the year, and then it's like then the next thing and the next thing. So I think a lot of artists took that opportunity as a moment to like chill and relax and not write music and not tour. But then there were other artists that I noticed that it's like, they would do sets on Twitch to like 5 people, and they were like bigger artists. And that to me, like, it was kind of cueing me. And it's not saying that people who are resting, like, they're not really in it or they're not really about it. But the people that were, making things during pandemic, especially a lot of things, and having like a discipline around like making things, to me, I was like, oh, these are the people that like, they have to do this. Like, this is like something that is just in them, that it's like, it doesn't, like you were saying, it's not about the shows and the streams. Like, it's about the act of doing something, like my wife gardening. Like, she's not looking for like, starting a gardening show or, a channel. She just enjoys the act of like growing things. So yeah, it's interesting that like you chose to do that in that time. And like, it's great that it worked out, but it almost sounds like even if it didn't, you would still be just like making things and sharing things.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say what I would have done if it didn't work out. I would definitely still be making music.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I would like keep doing the silly videos because it's a little daunting to put yourself out there. But
Yeah.
I mean, it really does help when you do get like I'd be lying if I said like getting positive feedback is like really helps the motivation to keep doing more. So yeah, I mean, I definitely, it was inherent in me to like just keep creating. It was really nice to stop touring, honestly. That, like you said, that like getting off the treadmill, like I didn't realize that I was kind of burnt out at the time. Because I was doing like a big tour with Nitty Gritty at the time, and it was like pretty hefty, and I remember being just like a little burnout. But when the pandemic let me just stay home for a bit, I did enjoy that. The other stuff, pandemic sucked, but I definitely enjoyed staying home for a bit. Still kind of like miss those days, to be honest. Like I'm touring like crazy right now, which is awesome, but it like being able to stay home was sick.
Yeah. And it is like, it's the part of the industry that it seems like we're starting to talk about more, but like historically, because it's like, oh, it's rich musicians complaining again, but like the touring is grueling. Like it's something that, like, it's no joke, like finishing at a club at 4 a.m. and then you have a 7 a.m. flight to go to the next, city. So you don't even go back to a hotel room. They take you straight from the club to the airport where you sleep, waiting to board. The plane. Like
I have one of those this weekend. I have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be fun.
Talk to me about that. So, what is different now? What do you feel like this chapter that like, cause there are, there is a lot of energy sort of like around you and around the project, but where do we find you now? And, what are you looking for in the future?
Everything's kind of lining up right now with the socials are doing well. I got two songs that are streaming really well. Just played EDC Vegas. So like, yeah, a lot of eyes are on me, but I try not to let that get to me either. Like the positive stuff, I try not to let get to me either. Just kind of like keep doing what I was doing to get here, really. Just making dope tracks. I like every time I produce something, I feel like I get better. So like to me, that is kind of what keeps me going. Just feeling like you're getting better at something is a really good feeling. Yeah, leaning into what I got going on already. I want to do something really cool and big around beats I can't release soon. Something that a lot of people have been asking me to do. So I'm going to do that. I do want to do something I feel like, that I could lean into more is like just more community building for my fans, because they are there and they love me. And like, I've done pretty well getting to this point, and like, I'm like, I'm really fortunate. So like, I do want to like do cool stuff for them. I think that is really important for longevity, and just, without them, I wouldn't exist. So, finding those like super fans and like doing cool stuff for them, and just like continue to put out dope tunes. Like that's the thing that I love most, is signing records, putting out records, and getting like the feedback of like when I see a big DJ play my song, that probably is like my favorite shit ever, honestly. Like when Fisher dropped Sunshine at Space, I don't know, I couldn't stop smiling for like 3 days. That shit was so dope. Because he's also like literally one of my favorites. And I don't know. Yeah, just kind of keep my head on straight and just keep plugging away, really.